minute. Shivanji, our another gentleman, Captain Tripathi, is joining. He is also in the same age group. Tripathi ji, we can hear. Can you? Yeah, you are still connecting. Okay. Amritlal Saha is also an advocate from Tripura, Agartala. This was Jagdeep Chokarji, sir, from ADR. It's 11 o'clock now. We are starting. Shivanji,
Yes, sir. Please start.
I'm going to start now. On behalf of the Forum for Fast Justice and PCGT, we will welcome you all the participants, and particularly our veteran Padma Vibhushan Sri M.N. Venkatachaliah ji, the 25th Chief Justice of India in the Supreme Court. Today we have a number of issues before us when we talk about the judicial reforms or we are heading towards. The framers of the Constitution of India has given us three pillars with different powers and independent to work with. But question is today where we stand. Are these three pillars independent on their own, or are they working under some influence here and there from time to time? 71 years is not a small period. It is a huge time where our democracy should have matured much more. But when we compare ourselves with United States of America, we find we are nowhere. Where is our judiciary? Why the pillars are shaking? Whether first pillar, second pillar, or now the fingers are raised at the third pillar too. So question is where we are heading towards. Are we not enough matured, or shall we go back to the foreign powers that you please come and rule us, because we are labeled as one of the most corrupt country in the world? So where is the democracy? Where is the rule of the law? Where are the peoples? Crime against women are increasing like nothing. And politicians, nexus with the politician and bureaucrat, the first pillar and second pillar, it is also a big problem. And when we go to the judiciary, we come with a doubtful mind that whether we are getting justice or we are simply passing time or somebody is pulling the threads from behind. So that is why we say that it is the diluted, trust of the people is in diluted. I would like now request Gehna to play the message, recorded message from our former Bombay Police Commissioner, Mr. J.F. Ribeiro ji, for the welcome to you, sir. Gehna. Gehna, please.
Give our it is very kind of Justice Venkatachaliah, former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of India, to address young students, but we understand that they are the future leaders of our country, and it is very important for old people like us to expect them to give our future of this country in their hands, and we have to speak to them, share our thoughts with them, hear what they also have to say, and that is what Justice Venkatachaliah has come here to do. This collaboration between PCGT, of which I was the chairman till yesterday, now I have handed over charge to Mr. Raja, who will proceedings of this meeting, and the Forum for Fast Justice is also a collaborator. In fact, they have initiated this meeting, and we are very happy to have them as our partners. We understand that fast justice, if justice is given quickly, it will have quite a different effect than asking people to be hanged for commission of crime. You know, now rape cases, for example, have shown an increase, and people say, give death sentence to the persons who are guilty so that they learn a lesson and others won't do it. Well, actually, uh, empirical evidence shows that this is not the case. It doesn't happen like that. It does not stop them from committing these offenses because we have to actually change the whole mental attitude of our young men. You know, at home, in any uh, in a normal Indian house, the young man is always given preference over the girl child. And that is one thing that we have to change. We have to change it in our own heads, in our own minds, so that this feeling that women are to be subjugated or kept as second number two is absolutely wrong. They are equal, and God has created them like that. And there are males, females in every species. Lions, tigers, birds, reptiles. This is a normal. This is a nature's law, and but they are all equal. Useless one without the other. So this is something that has to change. Our whole mindset has to change, and the young men should not feel that because nature has given them more muscular power that it is going to they can use that for their own lust or things that they should not indulge in. We are human beings, and we are also we are also people who understand the nature's laws. So please understand that we there are other ways of dealing with this subject, and only when that is done will we be able to tackle this problem. So the death sentence is not required. I am totally against it. In fact, death sentence should never be given because we uh, value life. And a person who has committed a crime, even if he is really a bad person, he has to be pitied and he has to be brought to heel. Of course, he cannot be let loose on the community. That I understand, but uh, taking his life is not going to help anyone. What we have to really do is to ensure that punishment is fast, that the cases are heard quickly, and that there are enough ways of doing it. And you know, today the number of pending cases in the courts all over India has gone to more than 4 crores. And it is really a sad commentary on the way our judicial process works. I remember I myself studied law in Government Law College in Mumbai, and I passed out in 1950. And I used to attend sessions courts because I got interested in criminal law. And when I saw that there was no adjournments given, it was heard from day to day, and you till the man was either acquitted or punished. Usually he was punished, but the witnesses had no time to be suborned. Witnesses had no time to be bribed, and this is. But today they actually release people on bail. There was no bail at that time. They used to be always in custody, but within a year the case used to be tried and the sentence or the acquittal pronounced. So this is what we should strive for. And my friend, Mr. Sailesh Gandhi, who was the former Central Information Commissioner, he has a feeling that if all the uh, vacancies in the courts are filled, even that will help you to reduce the pendency to almost zero. I don't know whether zero is practical, but certainly it will help to a great extent. There are other things also that we have been recommending, and Sailesh Gandhi is always thinking about ways and means of tackling this. But Justice Venkatachaliah would be the best person to tell us what he feels, why the trust of the public in the judiciary has reduced. There are other reasons why the trust is reduced. For example, there is always an attempt to suborn the judiciary itself, and then political parties are always interested in their own power, and in that pursuit of that power, they would like, when they are in office, to see that the judges who are appointed are persons who would uh, help them in, in remaining in power. Now, you have seen what happened in the US yesterday. It was a shameful thing. And where the president of the country himself instigated a mob to get into the houses of parliament. And there it is called the House of the Congress and the Senate. And this was unheard of. But before that, he had gone to he tried every possible trick to ensure that that the verdict of the people is reversed. And he went to the courts, and not a single court, including all the judges whom he had appointed, uh, ruled in his favor. And that is what should be, because they have their own self-respect, their own value for their own conscience that to think of. And this is why there was some. What has happened is that otherwise the US would have been condemned totally. But now, though it is being condemned for what happened yesterday, there has been some relief in the fact that the institutions of government, of governance, they stood up to their principles. And I think that is what we should also strive for, because there is a tendency that this is under siege, and we should not allow that to happen in our country. Young people should understand this problem as to what is happening and why it should not happen. What it, our own good name is at stake, and if we want to get ourselves on the high table of the nations of the world, then we should not fall or stoop to this level. So Justice Venkatachaliah would be the ideal person to talk to us about this, and I the proceedings to start, so that you hear him, because you have come to hear him and not come to hear me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, already we are late by 2 minutes. So, cutting short the introduction of Jaswant Bhai Mehta, I request him to introduce Sri M.N. Venkatachaliah ji. But let me speak two words about you. That when Mr. Jaswant Mehta is the pioneer in opening eye banks throughout the country. He has a big contribution in treatment of eyes throughout the country for the poor people free of cost. His brand ambassadors were film stars. He is also advocate of presidential system of democracy of what we have seen in USA we are not seeing in India. But that is because of there are some lacunas about which we are not discussing right now. But his book on the presidential democracy has been endorsed by none other than Nani Palkhiwala, then Ratan Tata, etc. And the book was forwarded by our Padma Vibhushan Sri M.N. Venkatachaliah ji himself. So, welcome Jaswant Mehta ji, and introduce your old friend and our chief speaker today, Sri M.N. Venkatachaliah ji. Please, unmute yourself, sir. Jaswant bhai, unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
we are
you
hearing
so
you,
much.
sir. Please.
Yeah, thank you for giving me this privilege of introducing Sri Venkatachaliah ji. Of course, he doesn't need any introduction. The person who has who retired in 1994 as Chief Justice of India, he is one of the unique persons who has still remained active 26 years after the retirement. And that too with the zeal and enthusiasm which, even the youngsters do not possess that zeal. He was chairman of National Human Rights Commission. He headed the Constitutional Reforms Committee by the government of India way back in 2003. And of course, he has been awarded Padma Bhushan. He is still active and he has authored so many books. And he is like, an inspiration for persons like us. I just entered 80, but I always considered at the age of 92, if Venkatachalaji could be so active, should I retire? This is, like he is an inspiration, And of course, I had also an occasion, I think it was my privilege to interact with him on the constitutional reforms when he was in Bombay. And last year, when my book was inaugurated, he was invited as a chief guest, and the speech, which he delivered is still inspiration to me. Over to Venkatachaliah ji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Esteemed Mr. Rabero, esteemed Sri Praveen Patel, esteemed Yashwant Bhai Mehta, respected friends, ladies and gentlemen. I must admit that I'm an admirer of our Bhagwan Ji Rayani Sahib. I've seen his enthusiasm for judicial reforms. For almost 25 years, I've watched his concern and commitment. But I must say one thing before I present my views about the areas, the litigation, the role of lawyers, the role of the judiciary. In 1991, esteemed Sri Palkiwala, whom I had the great privilege of knowing personally, made a very critical statement about the Supreme Court of India. It was a criticism which was very sharp, and the judges met. Palkiwala said, at the rate at which Supreme Court is functioning, it will require 300 years for it to cleanse its mess. It was a sharp indictment. The Economist of London took it up and wrote a somewhat of a nasty piece on the Indian judicial system and particularly the Supreme Court of India. The facts were all wrong there. And the judges met. And Palkiwala was too great a man to be criticized for his comments. Then I suggested, I was in the bench there, I suggested in the meeting that let us look at ourselves, look inside ourselves and see whether what we are doing is up to the national approval. We had time, I'll take 1 minute to tell you what happened thereafter. We had about 187,000 cases pending on that day in the Supreme Court. The next 8 years, we added an average of 40,000 a year. We added in some 3 lakh cases. Over the 8 years' time, between 1982 to 2000, 1998, somewhere there, we had to account for about 4.5 lakh cases. I want to tell you that on the 15th of February 1998, just about the time Justice Verma retired, the total pendency in the Supreme Court was 19,200. Perhaps this is the finest turnaround of any judicial tribunal in the country. We had to account for 4.5 lakh cases, and the arrears, we started with 1,87,000, and we added 40,000 and an average of 40,000 every year. And at the end of the 8th year, the total pendency was 19,200 cases. It is simply possible to deal with the arrears dependency in the courts. Justice Verma and Justice Ahmadi were great managers. They did splendid work. And it all depends on the way in which you structure the proceedings and manage the court management. Case flow management is an art, is a science, is an art. And this is where perhaps we miss the point. It's for I'll mention something about it in the course of my next few minutes of my talk. First is the general atmosphere in the country. No institution is insular. Each institution draws strength and vitality from other institutions. Perhaps the most important institution in the country from which we draw strength and sustenance is the democratic system itself. We'll have to give a sharp look at the democratic system. You know, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, the Third General Assembly adopted it on the 10th of December 1948. It makes a very critical statement, a very important statement about what is democracy. They say human rights and democracy are concomitants. They go together, hand in hand. And so far as democracy is concerned, they say by definition, they say it is the product of a free election. If you conduct a free and fair election through an independent authority, what comes out of it is democracy by definition. Very many people don't agree with that because that there can be elective despotism. The majority can be manipulated, particularly in the time of artificial intelligence, when voter preferences can be exploited and channelized into a particular way. You can always to say that democracy is by definition the product of election. That's one aspect of it. Election is one aspect of it. Elections can produce elective despotism. It can be the voting maybe and many kind of preferences which the voters may be persuaded to accept as the reality. What I wish to say is that to assess performance of institutions, judiciary, executive, parliament, to assess them insularly, independently of the atmosphere in which they are built and they work, may be a little unrealistic. Today, even in democracy all over the world, there's a cry for a strong leader. But also there is a democratic fatigue. You see a visible democratic fatigue. We want a great leader. We want to transfer all our responsibilities and duties to him, and he is a great savior. This kind of notion itself is anti-democratic. We are abdicating our individual responsibilities. It is said that the highest office in a republic is that of the citizen. The office of the citizen is the highest office because it is on his vigilance that the entire edifice of a democratic structure is built and sustained. Ladies and gentlemen, I must first say some appreciative words about the Forum for Fast Justice. They have been doing a lot of work to educate people about the reality of our judicial structures. And Gandhi Rahani, I attended a number of his conclaves and conferences. There's the very impressive work that they have done to draw attention of the nation to the state of affairs in the judiciary. Justice, they say, is the greatest interest of humans on the earth. The validity and the vitality of a judicial system is the hallmark and the surest index of the health of the nation itself, the political health of the nation itself. The rule of law is the badge of a free people. Right to speedy trial, speedy justice is declared to be a fundamental right. But how fundamental it has become in the matter of in the operational field is a different question. it is sarcastically said that law is one generation behind the needs of times. The courts are 2 generations behind the needs of times. And the judges are 3 generations behind the needs of times. And once I overheard a conversation between the Lord Chancellor, Lord Mackay, and an Australian judge. In Bangalore, the Bangalore Law School University honored the Lord Chancellor who had visited Bangalore with an honoris causa doctorate in the National Law School. On that occasion, one of the Australian judges, very eminent judicial personality himself, Lord Chancellor asked him what he thought about the future of the courts. He asked him what he thought about the future of the courts. The learned judge from Australia said that he was very happy to know that the Lord Chancellor thinks they have a future at all. This was a cynical remark about the way in which courts were functioning in the country. I'm speaking of this about 26 years ago. Then, ladies and gentlemen, the reality today is there are about 4 million cases in the country and 19,000 courts. To say how many judges are there for a million population is not a very relevant assessment, relevant question. It's as good as asking how many courts, how many judges are there for a million crows or a million tigers or whatever it is. They have no correlation. How many judges are there for a million cases pending in the court is a more relevant question. How many judges are there for a million? For example, the filing, India is not, it is not a country where there's a docket load. The filings in this country are the least compared to advanced countries. For example, in the United States of America, for every 1,000 population, some 300 actions are brought every year, not necessarily in courts, various tribunals and agencies where they seek remedies. 300 odd cases are filed every year. And Singapore, the figure is about around about 100. Singapore economically and educationally is as good as the United States. Per capita income is almost the same. Why is then Singapore is less filing in terms of cases, court cases? Simply, the answer simply is that Singapore is not an open society like the American society is. It's a closed society. In fact, you can't, if you want to make a political speech there, the script must be approved by government before you make a political speech. Therefore, in Kerala, the figure is 27 per 1,000. In Jharkhand, it's 4 per 1,000. There's no docket explosion, but there's only docket exclusion in this country. People don't come to court at all. People don't come to court at all, particularly in small matters. It is a question of vindication of a right. It is not a question of actually getting a kind of a reward or a certificate from a court that you are right in a particular litigation. These are some of the issues that bedevil the Indian system. I'll come to what I think should be the right answers to the question in a short while. Maybe many people may not agree with me, but maybe that I'm too optimistic about Indian potential in the capacity of Indians to manage or mismanage their affairs. Well, I believe that we can mismanage our affairs much better, as we see the track record we have. As I said, there is some estimate. There are 19,000 cases. Cases, at least some 100 cases a day. Knowing full well that all of them will not be decided, no progress will be made, no value addition will be made to the procedure. These 19,000, about quite a bit of those courts are vacant. Presiding officers are not appointed yet. Perhaps there is a gap between a retirement and a reappointment of another person to the same post. That's where somebody mentioned, Ms. Rabero mentioned what fell from Mr. Sailesh Gandhi, that you must fill the cases, the posts of judges, vacant posts, as and when they fall vacant. That's another aspect of the matter. What I would say is, large number of people come to the courts, advocates, witnesses, parties. They go back empty-handed, come again, go back. And somebody estimated the loss of man-hours and loss of productivity of people coming and going back without any productive addition to the progress of the cases at 2 lakh crores a year, including the travel expenses, the fees that they pay to the lawyers, the time that they spend, the loss of man-hours, loss of productivity. They estimate it at 2 lakh crores a year. A small part of it can be spent for the improvement of the system. The people think that it's a harassment, it's a loss to the parties. The cases spent for 10 years, 12, 15 years. Simple cases should take not more than half an hour. It will take 5 years, 10 years, depending on where the litigation has originated. The point I wish to make is, it is not the difficulty or the harassment suffered by the parties to a litigation. Last delays have a larger effect on the society. A realization that your rights are merely on paper and they can't be enforced speedily is a debilitating effect on the faith of the person in the system itself, the faith of society itself. And this general mood, even if you are not a litigant, the idea that when you go to court, when an important matter, you'll get stuck and there will be a punishment for you to go through the process itself, is a feeling that weakens our social structure itself. And for example, what I wish to give you an example, if the nuclear interaction becomes intense, they say there's a critical mass, and the critical mass is a chain reaction is built. A chain reaction is built, and no further infusion of energy is necessary to sustain the chain reaction that goes on by itself. Similarly, if a substantial number of members of the society, particularly sensitive members of the society, develop a sense of disbelief, a sense of lack of faith in the system, then there is a critical mass. You have a negative social critical mass. I call it a negative social critical mass, which unleashes a chain reaction. Chain reaction of what? Of cynicism. Cynicism is not a power of reconstruction, tool of reconstruction. Cynicism is a tool of destruction. And this is imperceptibly happening as a result of the failure of the legal system to deliver justice in time. If a justice is rendered after the need for justice is itself is dissipated on account of on account of passage of time, there is no meaning in this thing, and that cynicism is not of the parties alone who litigate in court. That cynicism is of the general public, and this negative social critical mass leading to cynicism is a power of destruction. Slowly it corrodes every other branch of activity of the state. This is where I think the importance of it is. Secondly, what happens when the main road is blocked? Main road of justice is blocked. The bylanes and sidelines open up. the illegal systems, extra legal systems. They first start as extra legal systems. They become illegal systems for fast justice in the hands of people, antisocial elements will take over. Every need has to be met. Somewhere it has to be, supply has to be given for relief. And they look up to these extra legal systems, and they're proliferating in such a way that at one point of time, it is much better to go to a gangster to settle your tenancy dispute than go to the court. That was the kind of thing that has been generated, and we are aware of that many cases in which such a thing has happened. That is the greater danger, far greater danger than what the parties suffer by way of delay in courts. The whole social structure gets the tremors, feel the tremors of an unsettling influence that this cynicism produces. This is where some such thing is happening. In fact, we are aware in the courts also that many times these disputes are settled outside the court through agencies which are not very highly respectable agencies. And this is one of the serious problems of our times. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to say then I would like to say what is the reality today in courts functioning. So far as human rights, fundamental rights are concerned, I had occasion to address a webinar some time ago, Bombay Society, Bombay organization. I was explaining how democracy, how democratic institutions function. What is the interaction? No institution is insular. To expect it is only a weak society that looks up to the courts of law for solving all their problems. This kind of faith in judicial paternalism itself is a sign of weakness of the society itself. And the point I wish to make is, at this critical stage, what should be done? What's the outlook? I just want to say something about the role of lawyers themselves. People have experience of interaction with lawyers. The profession of lawyers is perhaps the single most powerful instrument for the protection of the liberty of man and the decencies of civilized society. The role of the lawyer is so important. A lawyer puts his own life's experience to work in the service of his client. I want to refer to two beautiful instances in which, of course, people know about it. One was the famous author, Gustave Flaubert, who wrote that Madame Bovary. Even in French standards, is considered indecent. Even by French standards, that book, and he was prosecuted for pornography, Gustave Flaubert. And his lawyer was a former minister in France. And he argued the case so beautifully that if you open the first page of the book, Madame Bovary, there is a dedication of the book by the author to the lawyer. He says, "What kind of a lawyer are you? The brilliance of your eloquence and the brilliance is matched only by one thing, and your devotion to your client." And he says, by winning this case for me, you have provided an added respectability to my work itself. And he says in the book, if you see that dedication, it's a celebration of a lawyer's profession. What he says is, accept the token of my gratitude. Accept the token of my gratitude, however great it be. It can never adequately repay either your eloquence or your devoted loyalty. And he speaks so beautifully about his eloquence in court. Then there's another instance which I want to mention to you. Thomas Erskine was the Attorney General in England. Tom Paine wrote a book, Rights of Man. He told the king, you can't inherit people like sheep and goat. You can inherit from your father your stable of sheep and goats, but you can't inherit people from father to son. People are not some chattels or animals which can be inherited. And he was prosecuted for treason. And for fear of royal retaliation, no lawyer came forward to defend him. Erskine, the Attorney General, and a good friend of the king himself, he wrote a letter to the king resigning and says, I'll resign and defend him. And he says, the Attorney General resigned when Tom Paine's attack on the hereditary monarchy invoked the wrath of the king. Tom Paine was prosecuted. Then no lawyer appeared him. Then Erskine wrote to the king. This is the letter, the words which he wrote. From the moment that any advocate can be permitted to say that he will or will not stand between the crown and the subject arraigned in court where he daily sits in practice, from that moment the liberties of England are at an end. I have requested many bar associations to put this board on the doorstep of their bar associations and then say, what is your commitment to your client and to society? He says, the moment you say, I will or will not accept a case, then liberties of the English people are at an end. Whatever might be the seriousness of the client has a right upon your time, provided he satisfies your conditions. But you say, no, I won't. This is a very, very sensitive, beautiful thing. What is the way forward? What we should do? I'll take only a couple of minutes to communicate to you my ideas of it, which I, in my time, experiment with them and found to be of some important, out of the 4 million cases in the subordinate court, 50% of them are in 5 states. The rest of the 22 or 23 states share the other 50%. 50% are in the 5 states. In the subordinate courts, in the trial courts, 70% of the cases are criminal cases, 30% are civil cases. When they come to the High Court, there's a dramatic reversal of the proportion. 70% become civil cases and only 30% or 25% are criminal cases. That itself gives you an idea of where the whole schematism, or as they say, the common point on which the whole thing turns. That 70% becomes 30% here. The 30% becomes 70% in the high courts. Just very interesting. If you look at it, the problem is, if the solution to your problem is not in the problem itself, it's nowhere else. You can't fall down here on this ground and get up in some other place somewhere else. It is on the strength of the ground on which you have fallen, on the strength of which alone you must get up. And this is, give a stare at the problem. It will yield the solution itself. Give a good stare at the problem. The problem will give you an answer. This is the answer. And this is where I think we should be, first and foremost is, I'm told, I've not seen that, though I've been to Washington. Behind, in the wall behind the president's chair, it appears there is a board. I don't know whether it is really so, but it is so said. The buck stops here. The board says the buck stops here. on the wall of every judge in this country, there is a board, invisible board, which says, I pass on the buck. And the hierarchy of appeals. And so many extrajudicial methods in which even a good judgment is attacked outside in the execution and various other things. You saw, of course, that's a context in which we not a comparable context, when 4 persons were committed, sentenced to death in a very unfortunate case. The way in which the execution was stalled, one after another, one person, one accused will file a mercy petition. As the mercy petition is disposed of, another person will file it. Another person will file it. And that is disposed of, he will go to the High Court. And the High Court, then it said, of course, nobody says a decree of execution of a person for a thing should be executed speedily. It is an inhuman thing to say, kill him immediately. But whatever time God gives him, it's all right. But that's not be a very correct analogy, but in the context. But that's the way in which judicial proceedings are started. Though in that case, it may be that it gives a little more respect to an unfortunate victim of the judicial system. But this is where the problem is that nobody owns the problem. My presentation to you is judicial arrears and the mess in the judicial system is not owned by anybody. I own the problem, I have a responsibility to provide a solution. Between the government, if the Chief Justice of India will propose something, the financial aspects of it have to be dealt with somebody else. And some secretariat official puts up a note saying, oh, all this kind of thing. So the first point I wish to make is nobody owns the problem. The moment you own the problem, you have a duty to provide a solution for it. Secondly, the bar has a responsibility. Actually, I suggest if the case comes to 2 lawyers, both the lawyers will meet and say, I'll appoint a third lawyer. He will be a private sector judge. Before the matter goes to a public sector court, a private sector judge will, by mutual consent of the lawyers, will say, I will look into it and this is the justice of the matter. Will you please settle it this way? There are many eminent lawyers who are prepared to do it, of course, for a fee. And 2 lawyers will say, go to the chambers, they agree upon this man. There are many such bright men in the legal profession who could be trusted more than as trustworthy as judges themselves. You go to him and then sort it out. And secondly, there is a lot of penetration of technology into the legal system. Unimaginable way in which many of these routine things could be attended to by technology online. There's a beautiful book recently on which there's an international debate on a webinar. I think perhaps some of you must have participated in it. And that book is Richard Susskind's Online Justice, Future of Courts. There are beautiful ideas. It mentioned how almost 70% of the work of tribunals in England have been online. But there is an important aspect of the adversarial system which we have adopted. There are 2 main systems in the world: the inquisitorial system of the continent, the adversarial system, British adversarial system, which all countries have adopted: America, Canada, Australia, India, and things like that. The British have admired the European system across the channel, but they didn't adopt it. Slowly, it is penetrating. And this COVID situation accelerated the penetration of technology into judicial proceedings in a very marked way, though in a limited way, but it's an impressive commencement as an introduction, as a schematizor, as it gets into it. So you must take advantage of it, but provide the essential orality of the process of characteristic of an adversarial system, the orality of the process. In fact, there is I'll take only a couple of minutes to tell you a very interesting experiment that was done in the 60s. The American Supreme Court judges and the House of Lords judges met and wanted to know how appeals were disposed of in either side of the Atlantic. It's a Raymond Evershed Committee report that is now available in the Law Quarterly Review. Sir Raymond Evershed was the chairman of that committee. They went into the way in which the appeals were argued in America, appeals were argued in England. They were amazed at the orality, the power of oral expression, the gesture, the shrug of shoulders of a counsel. And then one American judge made a very pertinent remark. 100 pages of closely typewritten arguments may sometimes not be equivalent to a meaningful shrug of shoulders of the Queen's Counsel in the court. Maybe that kind of orality. You must maintain the orality of the process. And that American system is very, very curt about it. But the adversarial system of England is more emotional. The judges convey something. In fact, when a very great case was argued in the American Supreme Court, Brown versus Board of Education, about the equality of Negroes, they reversed the two earlier judgments of the American Supreme Court. It is about the blacks. Thurgood Marshall was arguing it. He later became judge. That noble judge, lady who of the American Supreme Court, who recently passed away, she was assisting Thurgood Marshall. At the end, the argument on behalf of the blacks was, the black man is tapping on your mansion. He says, please let me in, it's cold outside. I help you to build this mansion. Please let me in. At that expression, the judges looked at each other, and lawyers knew the case was won at that moment. That emotion. Of course, it was done on logical principles, a beautiful case. Of course, they say for another day, the beauty of those cases is for another day. Today, I'm only saying the good news about now the whole situation is that judges and lawyers and parties are aware of the penetration of technology and the compelling need to expedite the process. We are now conscious, deeply conscious, and the pressure of that consciousness that we are searching for these things, and it's possible. And I have suggested claims say up to 25,000 or 50,000, whatever the amount. The case is sent online to the judge. The judge puts it to a mediator. He needn't come to court at all. And within 40 days, you must settle that and send the decree. Send the opposite party to respond online. There's no point in asking parties to come to court, engage lawyers, send it. Say, a mediator will say this is the right solution. But all the evidence, even is evidence in the form of an affidavit, all consult one shot, you send it. And the machine, the artificial intelligence, to the extent it is permitted to permeate and penetrate into the system, it will decide what matters are controversial in the thing. And you see, one beautiful analogy is, I don't know whether my time is up, Mr. Moderator, please tell
Yes,
me.
sir. You have exceeded your time. No problem, sir. We are hearing you.
You know, this is a topic on which I become emotional. Therefore, I may drop on. See,
You are welcome, sir.
The whole of first have a system of a private sector judge chosen by the two lawyers on the opposing sides to nominate among themselves, and he will give you a solution. If that fails, go to the public sector court. Go exhaust your own internal resources, exhaust and drop on your own internal strength the system, the lawyer system itself. And if you, of course, if you can't do, then go to the court. Then small matters. Why allow people to go and allow artificial intelligence, machine learning, machine intelligence, and technology to penetrate into the system? 70% of the work is done that way. People don't have to go to court every day and wear a couple of pair of shoes. and decide what this is, and keep the interactive um, uh, personal matters not exceeding 25%. That can be done, and efforts are being done by the Supreme Court. There's some very great judges. The other day on Suskin's work, there's an international webinar. Two judges, Indian Supreme Court participated. There is so much of technology available now. It's a very, very big tool, a very, very strong tool, and it permeates into it that it can unsettle things. The bull running into a china shop. Therefore, you have got to be careful about the limits to which it can be utilized, where it should not be utilized. For example, sentencing process. A number of scholars are supposing there's wide variance of sentencing in criminal courts. How could we rationalize? There's so many things are available, and today this is where. And what is necessary is a massive process of training of all legal persons engaged, the lawyers, clerks, lawyers themselves, judges, magistrates, must be exposed in a massive way in training in the penetration of technology into the judicial process. They must be trained. This is a big thing. People don't know how important it is, because technology will change not from year to year or month to month, from hour to hour. And that's going to be a big issue. How do you update yourself? And in fact, in my time, I fought a battle with the government. Of course, the Prime Minister was absolutely helpful. I'm grateful to him. We built a National Judicial Academy. It's one of the finest campuses anywhere in the world, in Bhopal. I wish some of you visit it and see how beautiful it is, how the library is. There are 250 air-conditioned 5-star rooms for participants there. It is a beautiful campus. And exploit it. Even a clerk in the court should go there and learn. And they must tailor programs and have them in Bombay, Delhi, and all over the world, all over India. This is where I think we should be able to then choose one district in those five states where the 50% of the arrears are there. One pilot project in one district. What is the term of reference of the project? It is simply possible. I can assure you it is possible. What is the terms of reference? That they will find a way in which from the date of institution, in the first 3 years, all cases from the date of institution will be disposed of, 90% of it, not all. 4%, 4 million cases out of 10% will remain. They're sticky matters. You can't have a general solution to clear them. 90% of them will be disposed of in 18 months within 3 years. In the course of 3 years, you will introduce and work a system which will ensure that a case from the date of institution to date of completion will be 18 months. And then 90% of them will be disposed of. 10% will stick on, then will go to the long cause matters. And the next 3 years, 95% of them will be disposed of in 12 months. This is simply possible. And if you do that, you can be satisfied that the Indian judicial system has come of age and is functionally relevant and useful. This is where Wolf's committee in civil justice, Lord Wolf's committee in civil justice did. They reduced the time from the magistrate to the House of Lords from 7.5 years to 3.7 years. They said we are satisfied with it. But we must understand one thing, sir. The British House of Lords, now the English Supreme Court of England, now called the Supreme Court of England, they decide some 60 to 80 cases a year. American Supreme Court decides 130 cases a year. Privy Council decides 60 cases a year. In India, in the Supreme Court, 1,000 cases are listed every week. You must understand the magnitude of this problem and the kind of solutions that must match it. Cybernetics will say the complexity of the problem must be matched by the complexity of the solution. And it's very difficult. But start from the trial stage. You take the trial cases into control. I think whole thing will be of some. And this is the good news, that we are becoming increasingly aware of the pressure on the judicial system and on the potential of the technology permeating into the system. These are some of the important issues must be discussed, not in a webinar, but sit actual work. Thank you very much for your patience and courtesy. I'm grateful to you for the invitation. And when you get old men, they become a little garrulous. You must prescribe a time limit for, for the you must know the element of morality of the process in the common law system. It's one of the greatest gifts. The oratory, the lawyers, I have heard, had the privilege of listening to great lawyers. Palkiwala appeared before the court in my time, a number of times. What a great lawyer he is. And somebody asked Mr. D. N. Pitt, South African barrister, who is the best lawyer you have come across? Of course, your Attorney General settled one. He said, the best lawyer I have come across. See, this is the pride of the Indian judicial system. There are great judges really. And all that we lacked was a system. Today it's a system-ridden regime. Please make that possible. Thank you very much for your patience and courtesy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, sir. We have heard you and noted the things also. As far as the pilot project for the 5-state is concerned, we may reverse you and we will come back with some data, etc., and seek your guidance so that we can take it further for those 5 states with the government authorities. Now, our next speaker is Sri Bhagwanji Rayaniji, and we are already around 14 minutes behind from the schedule. As such, I also request our guest speaker Sri Venkatachaliah to please allow us to extend the webinar for another 15-20 minutes. Sir.
Good, sir. Good.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So Bhagwanji Bhai Rayani will be speaking, and for him, I would request Mr. Nazir Khan to please introduce our forum chairman, Sri Bhagwanji Rayani ji. Nazir Khan sahab. He is the president of our Greater Hyderabad Society for Fast Justice, convener for Telangana, and also a senior advocate in Telangana High Court. Nazir Khan sahab, please introduce Bhagwanji ji. Nazir Khan ji. Well, I have seen him. Mr. Nazir Khan.
Yes, yes. Whether it is audible, sir?
Yes, please. We are already late. Please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Good afternoon to everybody. It is customary to introduce host speaker because the host speaker is Sri Bhagwanji Bhai Rayani. He needs no introduction. And ओका तेलुगु लो साम्यता भी तेलुगु के एक मैं मैगजीन बोलना चाहता हूँ एक ही इसमें उसमें क्या जगमेरिगिना ब्राह्मणों की जंगमेला बोल के तेलुगु में बोलते हैं और Venkatachaliah ji, his lordship, he has spoken so many words about him, and now if anything I am speaking means it is like a lighting a lamp. So here only I can say Bhagwanji Bhai Rayani is known as a man of pill in Bombay because though he is not a lawyer, but he has filed so many pill cases, and he is since he has made a Nyayatra also, a memorable Nyayatra for awareness, bringing awareness to him among the people in 2016. He has started from Rajghat, and since 2008, he is working on this, and he is a father of Society for Fast Justice. He is a father, he is a founder. So here only I can say that, and his motto, his slogan is, present day slogan is, save judiciary, save India. With these words, I will this leave, and I will have this request this moderator to proceed any furthermore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bhagwanji Bhai, floor is yours. 30 minutes is the time.
Yeah, thank you very much for introducing me to the audience. And this is I'll give you a little history of
Bhagwanji Bhai, bit louder. Your voice is faint.
in 2007, Janhit Manch was created of Forum for Fast Justice. They invited in 2007 Justice for the former Chief Justice of India to address us. They invited him to Mumbai. And what he said in nutshell, if we want to save the nation and the judiciary, lofty ideals, the judiciary must be saved. And from this statement itself, we coined for epitaph.
Bhagwanji Bhai, your voice is not coming clear. Get more closer to the mic.
Yes, we are there. Yeah. Is it audible now? Not yet. Not yet.
It's okay. Now it's okay, but you be close to the mic.
Yeah, close to the mic. Yes, yes. Yeah, they said, and for taking this movement far and wide across the country, because of Janhit Manch was a small organization, and Janhit Manch itself decided to form a wider one, which can reach to the country's nook and corner. That is why Forum for Fast Justice was born in March 2008. And how we started? Because we did not have the duty that it should be taken to
Your,
the across.
your audio is not yet clear, sir.
Not yet. Then what to? What
Some
to?
things either you unplug and plug in again. Maybe some loose connection.
I have the laptop before me. I have the telephone before me. And anyway, we are trying. Bear with me. And whatever the voice reaches to you, try to. Otherwise, I will have to. Anyway, and for making movement far and wide, what we did, we went to the donors. We went to the donors and requested with folded hand. Then a movement is started in this country. It has first time in the country, and we want to take the justice to the doorstep of everyone, whether he is poor or rich. Is it audible now? Can you listen to me?
We are hearing, but still the voice is cracking. I think either your internet connection is weak or your plug of your mic. Yeah, please check.
Anyway, I continue whatever it is. Anyway, anyway, they started to set up service centers across the country.
We are not able to hear you properly, sir.
Then what to do?
These were words are clear. The last few words were clear.
Huh.
Now this is okay.
Now what? It is fine now?
Yes.
It's okay?
Yes, sir.
Huh. This is which we went to the donors and believe me, being a new organization, people who had not heard anything like this, a judiciary can be planned. We did it, and some 2 crore 50 lakhs rupees.
Mr. Patel, Mr. Rayani is still not audible.
That is being
I
already
suggest that we take up the questions.
we have income tax exemption also under ATG and all that.
Bhagwanji bhai, your voice is cracking and it is not clear. Shall we, in the meantime, you are correct the things. In the meantime, we can take up some questions.
Yes, you do that.
That will save the time also, and you can just check up your system in the meantime.
Yeah, do that. That's we are trying to that.
Yeah, please.
Take something more.
Yeah, in the meantime, we take up the questions, sir. Okay. Shivam, go ahead with the question answer. Within this period, let Bhagwanji bhai check up his internet connection and the voicemail, etc. Shivam ji.
Yes, sir. Shreya and Bianca, over to you.
Right, so we'll be starting with the question and answer session now. Sir, the first question to you is from Sir Praveen Patel, the Honorable Trustee for Forum for Fast Justice Mumbai. And the question is, the constitutional framers have allotted 3 wings and each wing is to function separately. The judiciary is the protector and guardian of the constitution. Is the judiciary functioning as per this mandate?
Sir, this question is for Sri M.N. Venkatachaliah ji, sir. Unmute, sir. Sir, we are not able to hear you. Your mic is off. Unmute yourself. Unmute, sir.
Gena, please send a request to sir to unmute himself.
I did.
Venkatachaliah, sir, your mic is off. You will have to unmute yourself. Then only we will be able to listen to you. Not yet. Bhagwanji bhai, is the problem solved at your level? Shreya, can you unmute from your side?
He can ask to unmute, only he can unmute himself.
Sir, take help of someone from your staff or like that to unmute your system so that we can hear you. Not yet. Yeah, unmute. Yes, sir. Now we will be listening to you.
Very good, sir.
Thank you, sir.
What is the question?
Shreya.
Yes, sir. So the question is that the judiciary is the protector and guardian of the constitution. Is the judiciary functioning as per this mandate?
Shreya, please be a bit loud. You're not audible.
Hello?
Hello? Yes.
Bit louder. Shreya.
So the question is that the judiciary is the protector and guardian of the constitution. Is the judiciary functioning as per this mandate?
Mr. Patel, can you kindly tell me what the question is? I am not able to.
See, the question is mine itself, so let me raise it also. Thing is that the judiciary is the guardian of the Constitution of India, being an independent body as provided in the Constitution.
Yes.
But is it is correctly taking its position to the expectation of we the people of India? Trust is diluting.
I don't think this too general sweeping statement. The judges take a oath to uphold the Constitution, not to listen to the changing views of the public from time to time. And the expectations of people change. And if they, I think this is a question which perhaps needs an answer from time to time. You know, there are occasions when the court's views have gone against the better judgment of the society. Their views have gone against the better judgment of the people. But that will be corrected either by the legislature or by a later court. Therefore, this is a process. And you can't generalize that saying one philosophy of one court at one point of time might be a different philosophy altogether. And there is 3 phases in the evolution of the Supreme Court of India. The first case was a precedent-written court, where judgments like Gopalan's case is a shocking denial of justice occurred. Then came the second phase, where they developed very sharp tools for legal control of government. And that's a very creative stage. The third stage, where they were applying these new force tools, legal control of government in actual situations, and that produces certain reactions. So it's a question of evolution. You can't fix anything as frozen in time. And you must assess the performance of the Supreme Court not in a particular case, but over a period of, say, 70 years now, from 1950 to this year of grace. What kind of changes that have occurred? It's an exciting story. How they have dealt with the important issues. One of them, some issues may not. There are, in some cases, there are no judicially manageable standards. In fact, the great judge Wendell Holmes in America said, if the power of judicial review is taken away, the American government will not come to an end. And he said, judges don't have the stock of social and economic wisdom by which we can say this law is wise or unwise. And he went on to say, what I want is what the crowd wants. So an episodic event can't give a background to the philosophy of the court. I think Shreya's question must be answered in general terms.
All right, sir. The next question is by Vipul Mudgal from Common Cause, New Delhi. The question is, do you think the politicization of police is a dangerous trend for democracy? And how can the judiciary help in freeing the police from the clutches of the political executive?
You see, there in 1968, English court said nobody can interfere with the course of investigation of a police officer. And all the commissions for reforms of police system. In fact, I had occasion to refer to this I think you're a student of law, you would have said that in 1904, sitting with Justice Anand, I had occasion to refer to this in a somewhat elaborate way in the power of arrest. I said 73% of arrests that were made in India were unjustified, were made for collateral motives. 40% of the jail budget is wasted as a result of this unjustified arrest. Power of arrest, power of investigation, the police have to be professionalized. The professional element of the policeman's work is neglected, and they're acting in a manner which you suggest is not consistent with the law. But this is a matter which is a matter of concern. I agree that this is a matter of concern, and So there is a Supreme Court said how police officers must be transferred, who should transfer it. Political influence should not be there. But in the matter of implementation of that, there is a lot of things lacking. The matter is pending in the court. I agree with you that that is a very, very important issue to put confidence in the public, ensure confidence of the public in the system of investigation and prosecution of crimes. This is a very important issue for which we have not yet found a good solution.
Thank you. Come with the next question, Shreya or Madam Chetia.
Okay, sir. The next question is by Ashish Mehta, trustee for Forum for Past Justice, Mumbai. The question is, seeking timely justice is a fundamental right guaranteed in the Article 21 of the Constitution of India. With over 4 crore cases pending, where the litigants should go.
The fast, expeditious justice is a part of the fundamental right, is the declaration made by the Supreme Court. We are aware of this, but the question is, it requires the lawyer's cooperation to dispose of a case expeditiously. The docket load on the court plus the cooperation of the lawyers is necessary. I always said the courts need auxiliary adjudicative support. Auxiliary adjudicative support. And the system requires certain amount of inputs of the kind which I discussed earlier in the course of my talk. There is a scope for improvement, and the best assurance should be the commitment of the members of the bar for speedy justice. If the bar members are determined to see that the case are disposed of quickly, it is easier to do that. Judge can't do it against the wishes of the members of the bar, the lawyers appearing in the case. It becomes a kind of a problem. And these things, I don't say they're unsatisfactory or have collapsed. All these hard words break no bones. But there's a scope for improvement, and that can be achieved only with the cooperation of the members of the bar.
Thank you, sir. The next question is by Pirtipal Deno. The question is there some system of accountability that can be put in place with regards to the pendency of cases?
See, there is some significance in that question. In America, there is a statute which makes judges accountable. In fact, I can give you an analogy. The British Parliament had the ventilatory jurisdiction. You know what ventilatory jurisdiction is. Whenever a public grievance is raised in Parliament, the questions are asked about administrative lapse and all that. That's the ventilatory jurisdiction of the Parliament. They found a device how it should be handled. You have heard of the British Ombudsman, a British Ombudsman. And he is set up by a statute called Parliamentary Commissioner for Administration Act of 1967. Parliamentary Commissioner for Administration. He is an extension of the functioning of the Parliament itself. Usually is a bureaucrat, seasoned bureaucrat, is not a judge. The essential thing is a complaint could be made against an administrative branch, administrative agency, or an administrative officer only by a House of Commons member of the House of Commons. House of Lords member can't do it, no member of the public would do that. because he represents the conscience of the parliament. And when the member makes a complaint, the whole complaint is investigated and the findings are placed before a subcommittee of parliament, and appropriate action is taken. The whole thing takes within 80 days. The essence of the whole thing is that it is done time-bound thing. And such a thing for administration is necessary. And I think we have conceived our anti-corruption mechanism in a slightly different mode, so that we have missed the essence of it. Time is the essence of the whole of the thing, and that is done by the British statute. And states must do it. There's a lot of scope for rethinking these things, and Forum for Fast Justice and organizations like that must discuss it with bureaucrats, politicians, and keep on addressing these issues consistently, continuously, on an ongoing basis, so that these things will get absorbed by the administration. Don't think politicians are averse to any better change, because they have no proof of the way in which it works. And they're also interested in getting credit for themselves. Think of everybody as our enemy. Our enemy is our only sluggish thinking. It's a point for discussion.
Thank you, sir. The next question is by Iqbal Ahmed Mohammad Sheikh. The question is, justice hurried is justice buried. Can a speedy trial lead to a hurried trial?
Justice hurried is justice buried. Justice delayed is justice. There is another slogan. Between these two slogans, you must find a midway. And it all depends upon a case of ejectment of a tenant who is not protected under the law, not a protected tenant. If it takes 10 years, is it hurried or delayed? Justice delayed is justice denied. Justice hurried is justice buried. The slogan will apply depending on the facts of the case. You can't keep on a case which has no tenability. Almost 25 to 30% of the suits that are filed are so speculative that they went for 10 years. You can't say justice hurried. In our case, justice delayed is justice denied. This is the appropriate slogan in the present context. Maybe there are some extraordinary cases in which justice is hurried and therefore it's said to be buried. And maybe there are some cases, but usually the complaint is justice delayed is justice denied.
Thank you, sir. Patil, sir, do we go ahead with more questions?
This is Advocate Nedambara. Can I speak a word or two? Am I audible? This is Advocate Nedambara.
Advocate Mr. Matthews. Who's that? I didn't follow. What does he want?
Anyway, sir, mic is mute now. Shall we request Bhagwanji Rayani to come up and take balance 2-3 questions later on?
Yes, now.
Yes,
Am
Bhagwanji, please come.
now?
Yes, you are audible, very clear.
Yeah, that is what it is. Thank you very much. And this after just registering this Forum for Fast Justice with the Charity Commissioner on that was in 2008. Thereafter, in 2011, we had our first convention in Mumbai, where Honorable Justice Chalaya inaugurated that, and the law minister also attended this.
about 300 delegates registered on that day, and the people attended that. I will be coming to next to that. But before that, I will be talking about 35 days Nyaya Yatra. Perhaps that is the first time in the country, and perhaps
Again, there is a
heard
problem,
about that,
sir.
that any other country.
No,
Anyway,
okay.
that is the, we just 35 days, we hired 4 minibuses. 2 minibuses were taken by Praveen Patel. He toured during this 35 days with the delegates, with our members from the Societies for Fast Justice and local people. And he covered almost northern India. And I myself took 2 minibuses, and with me also the people joined. Wherever we used to go, the local people vehemently endorsed our movement. They joined everywhere, wherever we used to go. We had the procession taken out where the locals also joined in hundreds and hundreds. This was just like a awareness campaign all across the country. How, as Venkatachaliah Sahib has referred that we have to go to the bureaucrat, we have to go to the parliamentarian, this. Sir, we did our best, and who is who of the country we have met during that. All the political parties, maybe RPI, Congress, BJP, Shiv Sena, CPI, JDU, BSP, RD, NSP, etc., Samajwadi Party, and all this is. And everybody was positive at that time, perhaps before us, that this is a very good initiative and we should take it very seriously. But nothing has happened because they are not, the politicians are not interested in this, because almost 50% lawmakers, that is the MPs and MLAs of this country, are just facing court cases, criminal cases in the Indian courts. So I don't think within themselves, within their heart, they are not interested in just a speedy justice. Because if the speedy justice is there, and if within a year's time is Supreme Court has mandated that within 1 year the politicians' cases, the criminal cases has to be over, but that nothing has happened because they are not interested. If this is within 1 year, if the case is over, that most of them are in the prisons, in the jail, so that they are not interested in doing. So whatever we have to do it with ourselves, with the people, with the and state bar councils of India all over. We wrote them letter that this is your duty, this was your bread and butter. You should join this because it has given you name, fame, and service to everything. But none of them, 300 letters I read, but not a single reply we received, because it appears at that time, 10 years before I'm just talking about, that perhaps the perception was that the lawyer fraternity itself is not interested in speedy justice. Maybe their own reasons why it is so. That's why I went to promote judicial reforms among NRIs. 45 days tour I took to London and United States, 45 days. I went from cities to cities and requesting them just to save their motherland by contributing something to just set up the branches of Forum for Fast Justice and all other things. They hosted me very beautifully. The people used to come, the Indian origin people. They listened me very peacefully, but thereafter nothing has happened. I can cite some press reports. What is this? 8 former CGIs corrupt. Ex-law minister tells Supreme Court. Times of India dated so and so. Justice Krishna Iyer, what he says, that is even a shopkeeper manages shop very well rather than the courts are managed so shiftlessly. What Nehru said, that huge pile-up, backlog of cases is a disease. But to cure the disease, Nehru, not only Nehru, but thereafter all the chief ministers, all the prime minister, all the prime minister, till to date, that is Narendra Modi has done or not done anything to improve the judicial system. On 6/5/2001, I wrote to members of the Bar Council of India, as I said that, and that is I gave the examples of Australia has 41 judges per million population, UK has 51 judges per million population, Canada 75, and United States of America 107, 107. That is why I went to Singapore and I met with a couple of advocates, local advocates in Singapore on a dinner, and I asked how much it takes after filing a case, how much it takes before your courts to dispose of one. Well, the maximum 8 months for the first, and second also within 3-4 months, and finally it will be over within 1.5 years. This is what Venkatachaliah also referred to that. But this is the speedy justice, and the people are filing. Why the people are not filing here the cases? Because they say, as Venkatachaliah says, that it travels from one person to the descendants and second and third. Thereafter it takes 30, 40 years, 50 years perhaps. And one of the reasons for prosperity of this veterans community is because there is a speedy justice. Never bother to help clear the mounting backlog. One, the OTG, politicians, the bureaucrats, and the lawyers, and perhaps, let me tell, after retiring, even the judges also, उनके दुकान खोल लेते हैं, arbitration करने लगते हैं, or they wait for government commissions. One of the Chief Justice of India in 2014, I met and I requested that after you retire, please do something about judicial reform. He jocularly said, Mr. Rayani, on such a day, I will be retiring. And thereafter, I will join with your movement. I will join Forum for Fast Justice. But he was joking, and soon thereafter, he became the governor of one of the states. So this is what, because the retired judges are also not very well interested in this. And I was referring to this, our first convention in Mumbai, 2011, who as a speakers from all over the country we invited, and who attended: Justice Dharmadhikari, Jai Prakash Narayan, IAS, Dr. N.R. Madhav Menon, Prashant Bhushan, Shailesh Gandhi, Jagdish Chokar, Arvind Kejriwal, Dr. Manwari Lal Sharma, Manoj Mehta, etc., etc., Justice Kamleshwar Nath and all that. So that was one of the finest moments for us, that such people came. And I subsequently met Rahul Gandhi also. He's at that time, his law minister was, I forgot, I think whosoever was
Virappa
saying, he
Moily.
did it. Who was he?
Virappa Moily.
Hello.
Virappa Moily.
Virappa Moily, yes. He was because he sent me, Rahul Gandhi sent me to Virappa Moily. He was the then law minister of the country, and he received us very nicely. We talked about that, and one after another he started taking steps for expediting the justice delivery system. But subsequently what happened? Maybe the members of parliament would have thought that if this happens, then again we have to lose our seats. Because if it is within 1 year, if it is disposal of the cases, criminal cases filed in the courts, criminal cases, then they have to lose their everything. That's why they pushed the government at that time, Manmohan Singh government, and he was abruptly transferred to some insignificant portfolio, that is a petroleum ministry or something like that. And thereafter also we met Khurshid. He was also the minister thereafter, and we discussed all these things. But discussing doesn't lead to anything. The judges, I would like to tell.
Battery is like
38 million cases pending, 77,000 judges are required. Who spoke? K.G. Balakrishna, Chief Justice of India, the then Chief Justice of India. And Delhi High Court, Chalaya ji says that one judge said that it will take 300. No, Delhi High Court Chief Justice A.P. Shah, he said it will take 466 years if the current system continues. So this is what the former CBI Bharucha, as I said, that 20% judges in India are corrupt. There is a limit of tolerance. Who says? Former Chief Justice Bhagwati, he says there is a limit of tolerance beyond which it would be disastrous to push our people, Justice Bhagwati said. And the last one, if people don't have the spirit of rebellion, who says? the situation cannot improve. Nandini Satpathy, our 27 years, UK's SWIFT, say there is a one press report, I think last year, UK's SWIFT 27-day ruling puts our system to shame. Then another one, 45 years on, High Court hears state's claim on 3,000 acres of Godrej land in Mumbai after 45 years. 40 years on, war widow wins battle for land. It is good that she is leaving at that time. Family wins back house from tenants after 48 years. So like that, it is a series of this. I don't want to repeat them, but that is the Mumbai's High Court Justice Kathawala. Say, listen to this. Kathawala holds court till 3:30 a.m. before breaking for summer. 17-hour marathon with just 2 minutes break to clear 100 petitions in one single day. This is what, this can be taken cognizance by other judges also. But here what happens, that I have an experience in the court since several years. I go on arguing my PIs, etc., etc. But I see that many judges are coming half an hour late, keeping all of us and 200 people in the hall waiting. So this is what, since 2004, share of MP with criminal cases has nearly doubled in 2020. The criminalism increasing all over. SC backs EC. Supreme Court, why not bar convict netas from poll for life? And Supreme Court backs Election Commission, parties should justify fielding tainted candidates. But what Supreme Court has done? It has a sumoto power to order the central government as well as the state government. And I will come to that in 2008, I filed a PI in the Supreme Court with Common Cause and some other couple of people, organizations. And the Supreme Court I referred that in 2002, precisely March 21, Supreme Court gave a wonderful landmark judgment that as other countries are, as I enumerated, that UK has this, US has 107 seats and all these things. Our Law Commission of India in several reports has recommended to the government, to the law ministry, instead of 10.5 judges per million in 2002, they recommended it should be 50 judges per million to be almost on par with the international standard. And in my petition, Janhit Manch, thereafter, what happened? My petition came before the bench, 3-judge bench, and some Imtiaz Ali's criminal petition. Mine was a civil petition, PL, and some criminal petition they referred. Solicitor General of India, he said, Lordship, this is almost the same points have been taken in that Imtiaz Ali's petition. That Imtiaz Ali's petition was not on the board when our petition said that will be taken up because the issues are almost similar like that, and they dismissed our petition. We went for the Prashant Bhushan argued our case. We went for the review or dismissed. Curative petition also made, that was also dismissed. And when Imtiaz Ali, after in 2007, 3 years after that came before, at that time our petition was not, because it was dismissed. And what they appointed a committee. And because the judiciary as well as state government are fond of appointing committees after committees to skirt the issues on that. So they also appointed a committee. That committee, what has happened so far, nothing has happened. And as Venkatachaliah has said, that over 4 crores cases backlog is there in their court. It was hardly, when we filed the petition, it was 3 crore 20 lakhs at that time. And within this 12 years, it has shot up beyond. So about almost 1 crore has increased that, but nothing has happened. Nobody cares, either at the government, either by the retired judges, sitting judges, lawyers, and everywhere. And the people also, because there is no sort of rebellion against that. As at present we see that the farmers are fighting, rightly or wrongly, that we are not going into that. But so unitedly they are fighting for their right like that. The spirit has to come from the litigants all over the country. And this is the greatest. I go on telling sometimes I tell the judges also, when I am arguing my PL also, that is the biggest human rights violation, as it rightly referred, almost 2 lakh crore revenue we are losing. That is the loss, everything. And there are several factors, how it impacts the progress of the nation, that is the human right violation and all other things. But the judges, they don't listen anything about that. And our Council of India, 30 lawyers in India, fake, It says UK, fine.
Shall we conclude, sir?
I have, in March, something I forget about this. Anyway, there was a case in the Indian court. It was the Calcutta High Court had the 175 years old case. And one that was of some state, the royal family.
Your internet connection is not there, sir. Bhagwanji Bhai. Shall we go further? Okay. Let us take now for the concluding remarks of our 2 guests. I would request first Sri VP Raja sir, who is now the chairman of this ICGT. Please, Rajaji sir, for your concluding remarks.
Yes. Can everybody hear me, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I think it was a pleasure to listen to Justice Venkatachaliah, and at his age, even more interesting and very positive to see the optimism that he displayed. it is also interesting to see what can be called as a kind of a disappointment with the entire system, which was expressed very frankly by Bhagwanji Rayani. But I think we must all agree that while there is, I don't think we seem to be in a stage where we can just say that there is scope for improvement. There is something much more sinister that seems to be happening. If I were to just like bullet points, mention a few things which certainly worries a large number of citizens. One is the blatant misuse of the sedition provisions in the Indian Penal Code. Then the need for safeguards, both in the application of UAPA and the National Security Act. Bail not being provided, default bail. A lot of people are languishing in jail. And then most importantly, related to that, the master of the roster. Everybody agrees that a certain power is given to the master of the roster, the Chief Justice. But certainly arbitrariness cannot be the method of deciding that. There has to be some principles. There are many, many cases, including habeas corpus cases, which are pending for years. Leave out for the time being Jammu and Kashmir. Even at other places, habeas corpus cases kept pending. But certain, well, which the majority of the citizens feel are unimportant, being taken up even on Sundays. So this entire issue of is arbitrariness writ large at the highest levels of the judiciary. There are then vigilant groups which do what they want. Can we have some kind of a fast track trial of both officials as well as these vigilant groups? The recent Hathras rape case, or what happened in Moradabad, again some weeks ago. Then sending messages, you better act this way, an executive overreach. I wonder whether Justice Venkatachaliah will at least give his view to this set of students. The way in which Justice Muralidhar was transferred overnight. And of course, the judiciary gave him a nice send-off, the Bar Association, but was that sufficient? He was stopped in between from doing his job. Or what about Justice Gogoi's appointment as a member of parliament without a reasonable cooling off period? I remember reading previous interviews of Justice Venkatachaliah, where he has clearly mentioned that he is against all this, at least people at high positions like the Chief Justice, agreeing to post-retirement, call it favors. But there is another point which is a greater worry, and that is, like just to give an example, the 2017 amendment to the Companies Act, to the Representation of Peoples Act, to the RBI Act, all these were brought about as through the artifact of a money bill as part of the appropriation bill, so that the Rajya Sabha can be kept away. Even the other act was passed that way. But when it went to the bench, except for Justice Chandrachud, who gave a dissenting judgment, the majority judgment went in favor of. So a procedural lapse. Or today, you have this farmers' agitation. Again, I also will not take a view on the merit or demerit of it. But the way it was bamboozled and in the Rajya Sabha doesn't follow any principle of the constitution or the way the houses of the legislature are to function. The way money is getting collected through electoral bonds, a matter which is still lying pending in the Supreme Court. They have no time to look into it. or right now, the PM Cares Fund, where crores of rupees are being collected, but it is not open to CAG audit. It is not part of the right to information. If it's a private trust, how are officers of the government used to market it, including our various embassies abroad? And the judiciary keeps quiet. There are over 3 lakh under trials languishing in the jail. I don't have the full statistics, but I'm sure a large number of them have completed the sentence even if they are convicted. So by a simple review system, like the first review could be everybody who has already completed the system are let off, or some kind of a criteria. And finally, shouldn't we have compensation for wrongful detention, for death in custody, both police custody and judicial custody? And the compensation should be paid not only by the state, but by the erring officials. I mean, there are many more that can be, but I did very much appreciate what Justice Venkatachaliah said, that the citizen is the most important person in democracy. But empowering citizens, which is what, including our trust, the Public Concern for Governance Trust, which was started by Mr. B.G. Deshmukh, and after his death, Mr. Ribeiro was in charge. And I've been asked to look after the trust as its chairman since the last few days. That's what we are trying to do, empower citizens, educate young people, both in schools and colleges, about values. We fight corruption. We fight communalism. There's various divisive forces in society. I completely agree with Justice Venkatachaliah that cynicism is no good because it leads to destruction. I also agree with him that if our legal system does not come to our rescue, illegal systems will emerge. Being a Mumbai citizen, I personally, at least not personally involved, but seen this. There used to be this great don in the Matunga area called Varadarajan Mudaliar. And he used to provide instant justice. It was only when finally some very good police officers came that they were able to put this don right. But he was very popular because where people couldn't get justice either from the police or from the judiciary, they approached Varadarajan Mudaliar, the don of the area. So are we handing over the country to the dons? Or is criminalization of politics leading to a stage where actually dons are becoming our rulers? Very, very interesting questions. But I think I must, with a lot of ideas put in, we have got a lot more ideas to think. And I must thank Justice Venkatachaliah and Rayanji Saab for giving various views. And I'm sure this itself will be an education in itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome, sir. Now I request Ashwin Karyaji to put your views. He is the former principal, Law College, and one of our strong member. Please, sir, try to save some time also. Unmute yourself. Yes. Nothing. Your mic is not yet on.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We request you to save some time for us, sir.
Definitely. I know the time is up.
Yeah.
So we have heard two dignitaries, Mr. Justice Venkatachaliah and Mr. Bhagwan and they have analyzed the causes of delay in our judicial system. But only blaming the government or the judiciary will not be enough for our purpose. Now, if we analyze the causes of delay, so I find that there is we don't understand what is the importance of rule of law. Even the government does not understand the importance of the rule of law. judiciary, of course, understand the judiciary has to protect the rule of law. And so our government, there are various instances of the misuse of acts by the state. For example, take the example of APSA. You see, I think one lady, I forgot the name, she undertook task for 13 years for the withdrawal or repeal of the APSA Act. But nothing happened. All her efforts were vain, useless. And APSA still continues in operation in some areas of Assam and I think in Kashmir also. So, Mr. Raja gave some examples of the misuse of states, so I don't want to repeat, and there is a lack of time also. Now, second thing I want to observe is that our administration is also lingering and coming in the way of speedy justice and speedy trial. You see, there are certain, not only certain, but there are hundreds of cases in which the decision could have been taken at the government level, but the government finds it convenient to file an appeal or file a case against its own employees. And therefore, it does not want to give justice to its employees or to the citizens also. And it is in the habit of lingering the cases. So I think Justice Venkatachaliah said that they require cooperation from the side of the lawyers. But I think government is also responsible for causing delay in our judicial system. Now I think, you see, just as Justice Venkatachaliah referred to a case wherein he said that there are more than 50% police arrests are not up to the mark or not according to law. Similar can be said to be with respect to civil cases also. Because you see, when a case is filed either in a civil court or in a criminal court, you see, there should be pre-litigation policy. When the administration case see whether this is a viable case or not, or this is a fit case for appeal or for filing a civil case or criminal case or not. So there should be analysis of the facts and law of the case, and there should be a panel to see whether this is a case fit to be filed in a court. So if there is a pre-litigation policy, several cases can be disposed of before they come to the court. So I think pre-litigation policy is necessary. Now Justice Venkatachaliah spoke of training. I think, you see, he referred to National Judicial Academy. You see, in each state, I find that there is a State Judicial Academy also. And I had the occasion to go to such judicial academies to give discourse to the trainees. But I find there is a lack of commitment on the part of such judicial officers. If there is no lack of commitment, if sense of commitment is involved in them, I think the justice would be faster. And at the last moment, I would like to tell that as Justice Venkatachaliah referred to our judicial system, that it has adopted adversary system. I think in adversary system there are more technicalities. More emphasis is given on procedural side. So it hampers the delivery of justice. So I think our whole legal system needs to be changed so that more emphasis is given to the giving justice to the litigants and not emphasis is given to the technicalities. Our technicalities are only helpful in solving the problem. In fact, what happens is that our technicalities come in the way in the delivery of giving justice to our litigants. This is all about my concluding remarks. I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, sir. Now we have almost run out of time. So we are now simply, there are two requests. One from Jagdeep Chokarji. If he is here, please comment for 2-3 minutes, sir, and then we will have Mr. Matthews, and then go for finishing part. Mr. Jagdeep Chokarji, sir, for 2-3 minutes. Jagdeep ji. Okay, Mr. Matthews. Hello, Advocate Matthews. I think he's also not there.
Yes, sir. I think we can proceed with the vote of thanks.
Yes. Any other thing which Karyaji or Rajaji would like to say?
No,
To
perhaps if there
conclude?
are one or two more questions, we can take that and then have a vote of thanks.
Okay.
From the chat box.
Okay.
From the chat box, that is
Bianca.
we'll have to go to Bianca Chettiarji.
If
Yeah.
there's anything major.
Only two questions.
Yeah.
Sir, am I audible now?
Yeah.
Sir, I'll be taking the remaining questions. Sir, the next question is from Iqbal Ahmad, and the question is, how far are virtual hearings effective in promoting speedy disposal?
Yes, sir. Venkatachaliah, sir. Question for you.
What is the question? I was a little unattentive. Please kindly tell me what the question is.
So the question is, how far are virtual hearings effective in promoting speedy disposal of cases?
How far? What is that? What did she say?
A virtual hearing.
Online
Virtual
hearings,
court.
Virtual hearings.
Virtual court.
Yes.
It has its merits up to a point. All the procedural things could be done, but the emphasis on the oral presentation, the orality of the process, that must be preserved. I think in the present trial system, 60% of the work could be done online. Affidavits, the collection of evidence and all that. 30% might have to be a oral engagement with the court, the adversarial system. And I think progressively it must absorb the system must absorb technology and make it user friendly. I think there is a great potential. There's a lot of discussion. The other day, there's an international webinar on that, and 2 or 3 of our Supreme Court judges participated. The worldwide it was discussed, and it's a very that'll be the most important thing in the next case. This lockdown gave an impetus to the use of technology in courts, and it's still initial stages. It will come of age. It must come of age.
Yes. One more question, and that will be the last question.
Sure, sir. So the next question is from Ayush, and the question is, what can be done to clear the additional backlog in the courts created during the pandemic?
Kindly repeat it. I have a little problem with my.
So the question is, what can be done to clear the additional backlog of cases that have been created during the pandemic?
Well, that is my question also. I don't have an answer because the presiding deities of the courts must decide and how they deal with this situation. Pandemic has raised issues which are imponderable issues. There are more important issues than merely this. And I can only say, when King Solomon sat in his court, royal court, he had a man standing next to him. And whenever good tidings were brought to him, he would look at the man, that man would say, this will also pass. And when bad tidings were brought, he would look at him, he said, this will also pass. I hope this will also pass. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, no more questions.
Mr. Patel, you're muted.
Mr. Matthews, are you listening? Hello? We are not able to listen to him, rather, or what? This is the last time I am calling Mr. Andrews. Matthews ji. Okay, now we go to Madam Chandi Ramani ji for conveying the vote of thanks to our guest and all the participants, etc. Mr. Chandi Ramani, please. Gaina, madam.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm Gehna Chandiramani, and I'm the campus ambassador for PCGP at Jyoti Dalal School of Liberal Arts, NMIMS. I'd now like to propose the vote of thanks. Firstly, we'd like to thank our honorable guest speaker for the day, former Chief Justice of India, Padma Vibhushan, Sri Venkatachaliah, sir. So we're very thankful to you for enlightening us on this topic. We would also like to thank the chairman of PCGP, Mr. VP Raja, for his support and guidance, and the founding trustee, Mr. Ribeiro, sir, for his opening remarks. We would like to thank Sri Bhagwanji Rani, sir, the chairman and managing trustee, Forum for Fast Justice, Mr. Praveen Patel, honorary trustee, Forum for Fast Justice, Mr. Jaswant Mehta, for introducing our guest speaker, Dr. Ashwin Karyar, for his concluding remarks, and Advocate Nazir Khan, President, Greater Hyderabad Society for Fast Justice. We would like to thank the Dean of JD, Jyoti Dalal School of Liberal Arts, Mr. Achyut Vaze, sir, and the faculty as well. We'd also like to thank the participants for joining in. Last but not the least, I'd like to thank Ms. Shreya Yadav, President, and Ms. Bianca Chetiyar, Vice President, PCGT, National Youth Parliament, and Shlok Mishra from Jyoti Dalal School of Liberal Arts, NMIMS, for helping us organize this wonderful webinar. Now, the link to the feedback form has been shared in the chat box as well as on the group. Do take out a minute to fill it. Thank you.
Okay, welcome, madam. Now
Thank you.
we declare the webinar to be closed. Thank you, everybody, once again. Namaste.
Thank you.